Guys, I'm here with Zoe Tirado, and she is up next for our artist interview series who are a part of Dawn of the New Decade here at Staten Island Arts. And we're really happy to have you, Zoe. And how are you doing today?
I'm all right.
Yeah.
Doing good.
Okay, cool. First things first, can you tell us like some of your inspirations and influences of your work?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it varies. Artists that I really look at are like Paul McCarthy, Mike Kelly, Jenny Seville, um, Lucian Freud is definitely like an artist that I look at. But like just in terms of things that inspire me,
Hmm.
like female bodybuilders, I like just abnormal or I guess I don't know, taboo subject matters. I like more of the grotesque. I like nasty things. Um, but I definitely like femininity is something that I'm really interested in and how people define it. And so a lot of my work is really reflective of, I guess, that and like my own search of like what it means to be feminine. And I don't know.
So when you say exploring these thematical, these themes of taboo and femininity, what really draws you to these topics and these subject matters?
I think just people that are like their own free thinkers, people that are out of step with society, like the show that I had at Hub 17 last year was all female bodybuilders. It was like female MMA fighters, pro wrestlers, people in my life that I consider like strong women. And oftentimes, like, you don't see women in those roles, but it doesn't mean that they're not beautiful or interesting. And I think, like, especially the juxtaposition between like these beautiful women and then like muscles, which are always like masculine, and then even like just like blood and gore and like sheer violence next to like a beautiful woman is like, I don't know. I just thought it was like really fun.
Yeah, it has like a very like interesting contrast when you have these two ideas next to each other.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask, what are some of your mediums in which you like to work in? Like, what do you find yourself more drawn to, such as your materials? Do you have any specific like favorite types of mediums and like materials?
For sure. I mean, in a perfect world, I would have buckets of oil paint and tempera and I'm sorry, not tempera, turpentine and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But I mean, in terms of cost, it's just not feasible. So I use acrylic. I use a lot of gouache and just like as much like heavy paint as I can because I use a lot of paint. A lot of my paintings are huge, so I do tend to be I guess a little more frugal when I'm buying stuff. But I also like in acrylic, it's plastic, so you end up getting this like really like bright fluorescent color that you don't always get in oil. So I think I'm
Mhm.
actually becoming more in love with the use of acrylics. Um, but I love printmaking, I love silk screening, I love zines. I'm someone that's like very sentimental, so making a
Mhm.
painting and having one of it and then the idea of selling it is always like, I don't know, maybe it's the hoarder in me. I end up getting very like possessive. So making like a zine or something where I can make a ton of it or a print and then just hand
Mhm.
those out is like the best thing.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. So, how do you feel as though those working with those different materials affects your create and working with the different materials and like these different ideas that you like to explore? How does that like affect your creative process?
Mm, it's weird. My creative process, I kind of work in bursts. Like,
Mm.
I think more often than not, like, I'll probably go like a couple months without making anything. And then I'll spend like 3 weeks, like, just banging stuff out. I can make like maybe like 10 things, like big paintings too. I work very quickly when I do. But I think that lends itself to the materials in the sense that, like, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I know I'm not sure how to answer it because I guess I'm very like theme focused and exhibition focused. So if I have an idea and a concept, that really drives my creative process. Otherwise, I feel like I spend a lot of time thinking and looking at things. I do a lot of research and I archive a ton of stuff. Like I have like external hard drives just of like images and reference photos, scan stuff. So I think that's really what takes a lot of my time.
That's pretty dope. That's kind of interesting. That kind of makes me just think about, in a way, like to like kind of follow up on that is what's so when you have like these different bursts and you find yourself in your practice and your discipline, what's the most rewarding part? Like, what's some of the parts that you feel you celebrate the most? Before, during, and after you've created something, like with your process.
I think my biggest like accomplishment whenever I make things is when I make something and I'm not fretting so much on the details of it and it ends up coming out better than I expected. Whereas, especially if I'm painting people that I know, I end up getting very, very like hypercritical over everything because it's partly because I want to do a good job and I want to like commemorate this person, but it's also like I don't want them to be mad at me if I make them ugly or something. And the way I paint, you're gonna probably be a little like crazy looking. So if I'm making something that is someone I don't necessarily know, I think I put a little less emphasis on like my hands and it ends up being better somehow. If I don't fret as much, it ends up looking really good. So I'm trying to be more like that when I'm painting people that I know or like subjects that are super close to me.
I feel that. So I personally have a little bit of background knowledge on your piece in the show. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, the piece that you currently have, you've been exhibiting with us?
Yeah, so it's called The Buffest Chick I Know, and it's of one of my closest friends, Stephanie DeMarco. She is a Gotham Girls roller derby player, and she's kind of like amazing. She hasn't done it that long, and she's like risen up and like is now in like the all-stars team, which is like the team that goes all over the country, even like out of the country. They go to Canada and like they play against teams from Australia, like, and she's just amazing. And we've been friends since we were like little kids. And she's just like if anyone was like gonna be like one of those tough girls I was talking about earlier, it was like her. She's definitely it. So I was like, I need to do a painting of Stephanie. She has to, like, I can't do a show called Buff Chicks and not include her. Like she's the toughest girl. So yeah, so it's her. It's a picture, I think one of her friends actually took it from like during a game she's eating a bag of spinach in between like games or something or practices.
It's really dope. It's really such an amazing piece, and yeah, it's a really great piece. What's your history as making with making art? Like, when did you decide to really embrace your creative nature? Like, when did your practice begin?
My dad was always creative. He went to art school. My family just in general is really creative, so they always nurtured that part of like me and my siblings. My sister is a sculptor and ceramicist. My brother is an actor. Like we all do have like our creative outlets. It's funny because I went to Petrides and I ended up like failing art in Petrides because I was like so not about it at Petrides. I was like, I don't know, I was way too rebellious then. But I went to SVA for undergrad and that really just like opened it up for me. Like, because I think each different undergrad art school has their things that they emphasize, and SVA is all about like conceptual and like really like pushing the limit on like what people's expectations are, and like I don't know, it just really helped me, and like I think I honed in on a lot of my interests there, and I met so many people. Like some of my friends I met at SVA are like lifelong friends, and so like after that, when I got out of school, I was like, you know what, I just got to keep making stuff. So I prioritized it at first. Obviously, eventually you have to get a full-time job and like make an income. So things did take a little bit of a back burner, but I really think that SVA is where my interests really like came to full fruition. And I was like, this is what it's about, you know?
How did that experience like going to, because I feel like arts, like when you go to study the arts in college, or you have any, like, I'll say training and, like, like studying the arts, it kind of shapes and morphs your art in a different direction than like previously. How has like school like influenced your work in that capacity?
Before school, I was so obsessed with like photorealism. Like I was one of those people that was like, yeah, abstraction's cool, but like I don't understand the merit, or I don't understand minimalism. Like everything to me, like I felt like a true artist was by their like technical prowess. Like if they
Mhm.
could paint or make something that like I felt like was unobtainable, that was the goal, like to be on that level. And then like the introduction to like all these artists that are doing realism, but they're doing it in such like a lush way, and they're doing it really expressive, and you could see like emotion, and like there's more to it than just almost replicating like, what you see. There's like you're adding so much depth and body, so I think it just like helped expand my idea of what realism is. And so now I like this like hyper realism, grotesque realism is what I go for now.
Yeah, no, and like you kind of you with your work, because I've been following you for a while. It's on the artist tip, like your work has such deep value,
Oh,
and like the way that you use your highlights and your shadows are pretty amazing, and you have like such this surreal realism to your work that's like, and like you have a really great eye, and I just want to like applaud you. um so that something that's been like been coming up in my space, and definitely have to ask you, as a practicing artist on Staten Island, how does this affect you? And like, how is living on Staten Island as an artist, how does it affect your work? It affects your artistry, and what's your experience like?
Um, I mean, it's complicated. Just from my own, I guess I'm somewhat of an introvert in some ways. I mean, like I guess an extroverted introvert. I do see that it, like Staten Island has like its circles, so it is hard to tap into some of it a little bit. There is like a club mentality in a lot of art circles here. It's interesting though, because I think that Staten Island artists are really celebrated despite like what they're doing, or like their background, anything. Like I think people do come out and they're like, yeah, like like they will support you no matter what. It's just about, I think for me, I'm a critical person, so I need critique. And I feel like when I talk to certain people, I'm getting a lot of praise, and I like praise, don't get me wrong, but I want to have like conversations about improving and getting better. And I don't know if there is a lot of that, like for like, I don't think there's a forum for that necessarily yet in Staten Island. I don't, like, maybe at art lab, maybe in some places, but I think we need a little bit more like feedback loops going on. I
Yeah.
don't want to just work out of a vacuum. I want some more insight. I need more perspective. So I do find that in Staten Island, it's a little hard to find that.
Hmm. That's actually like really really deep. Do you feel as though if there was more of a forum for feedback, what do you think the effect would be, the lasting impact would be, if we
Oh,
had that forum?
I think it would like elevate all the work that people are making in Staten Island. Like I think to be patted on the back all the time and to have yes people all the time is definitely like, it makes you feel good. But I also think if you're somebody that wants to really like get to like the authentic root of like what you're making, and if you're somebody that's really serious about what you're making, to have like people really give you like an open and honest dialogue is like, it would just make everybody so much better. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like I've cried at critiques in school. Like I don't love it, but I definitely think that it's necessary. It's a necessary evil. I don't
And
know.
steel sharpens steel. So I hear exactly what you're saying, because like with it, you can there is an opportunity for growth when you get feedback. If there's no feedback, it's sometimes harder to spot the blind spots.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from. So me and you were talking a little bit before. and you were saying how you're working on a new exhibit that's coming up. It's a little bit wonky because of like, COVID times, but can
Yeah.
you tell us more about that, what you're working on and what you're up to right now?
Yeah, so I have been working on this series called Ghoul Friends for like years now. So I do have some pieces done, but I've been really buckling down and working on more for the Newhouse Center of Contemporary Art. It was supposed to come out in October. It was supposed to open in October this year. Obviously, because of COVID, that wasn't going to happen. But we have a perspective date in March, pending everything goes according to plan. Everything's good. And yeah, it's going to be a show just dedicated to past like performances and parties and like just I don't know, this scene here that I've been a part of for so long. And like it's going to celebrate like the different like artists that are here. It's going to have like queer artists, like diversity, like I don't know, it's just gonna be a little different than like what I've done, but it's really gonna be personal because all the people are like friends and people that are close to me. So I'm really excited. Yeah, I think it's gonna be cool.
What's the inspiration of the name? I really like the name. I'm curious.
I think actually like I heard it on like a Halloween RuPaul's Drag Race episode. And then I was like, oh, that's perfect for like like the show that I'm doing. Like I think that's where I got it from. It definitely didn't like come out of nowhere. I wish I was smart enough to think.
So then like, like out of nowhere, like RuPaul just whispers like, you better work. And you're like,
Yeah.
so you brought up like, we were just kind of on this topic of like quarantine and like, and COVID. So like, how did quarantine affect your work? Like, have you been producing a lot of work during this time? What are some of the challenges you've like faced during this weird moment in history?
I don't, it's weird. I think I've been like riding my emotions in this quarantine. So like when it first started, I had the mindset, I was like, I am going to create. So like I said, like I work in bursts. So I made like 3 paintings like in like a month, and I was like drawing and I was like pulling together all my references. I like organized everything and I was cooking, I was doing this like I was getting there. I put out like a digital zine from like the Buff Chicks show, and then it was like the impending doom feeling hit in and I slowed down, and then I moved, and like there was a lot of changes that went on. So I mean, I'm just now getting back into it. I have a painting that I'm in the process of working on. I'm got a lot of stuff that I'm planning, but it's weird. I think it was like really like emotional the way like my creativity was going,
Yeah.
It's weird.
Were there like any specific themes that you were exploring like during this like in the span of this year with everything going on?
It was just the Ghoul Friends stuff, really. I mean, I was in a virtual exhibit called Touch with Moisturizer Gallery, which is in Florida. And I had taken some old paintings that I had done, and I like digitally put them on the masks. And they're X-rated. I don't know if you want to show them, but yeah, and that was actually really great, and that was a really cool creative outlet, and I like connected with all these other artists that like they weren't just from Florida, they were all over the country. And I think the virtual exhibits kind of really lended to this new sense of community online. And I did like a gallery takeover of their Instagram where I shared like some artists that I'm really looking at, as well as like local artists that I think are really cool from Staten Island that I want to share with everyone. And that kind of reinvigorated me to be like, okay, like let's get this back together, like let's start cracking down and paint. So and no, it's been good. I feel like at least I've been connecting with people. That's a good thing about the internet, I guess.
Yeah. That's like, yeah, I totally feel that. Do you feel how have you like so it seems like you've been using the internet to your advantage during this time as well. Do you have any like new ideas based around how the use of the internet has shifted and like with your work in any way?
It's funny. It's really the way I want to present my work, maybe like as like redoing my website or something more interactive. Maybe it's almost like a virtual gallery, the way I'm presenting like the Ghoul Friend show or maybe the past shows that I've like thought about. Um, Even honestly doing some sort of like performing art type stuff, like
Mhm.
um I feel safer doing something in like the privacy of my house than being like a performance artist in person. I've like
Mhm.
definitely tried it here and there. At the last Queer Van Cult, I did a little bit of performance art, but I think maybe doing some sort of like video art, I think would be really interesting. Connecting it to the work that I've been doing. I did a little bit of that in college as well.
Mhm.
Um, but I've been doing a lot of video work for my job, so I think that's opened me up to like the
Explore that.
possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like exploring that medium a little bit more.
Mhm.
What could you tell us a little bit more about Queer Van Cult? You're one of the founders, no?
Yeah. So it's me, Jenna Snyder, Rachel Lingholm, and Nisi Mock. We put together Queer Van Cult, which is queer artists from the city, focusing mainly on Staten Island. It's performance art and new media. Um, we've had two so far. We had one right before all this happened that you were at. It was
Yeah.
like I think like a week before like lockdown was the last one. It was on Leap Day. Yeah, and it's just like highlights like all these different multidisciplinary artists that I feel like haven't really had a platform on Staten Island otherwise. I
Mhm.
think the experience of doing Queer Van Cult has been really, really great. And I'm excited to see like what we can do considering COVID, and like maybe we'll do some sort of like virtual thing. I don't know. We're still kind of like talking about it, but we definitely want to keep it going for sure.
Yes, please. It's very important. And like, the community needs it, and you're serving a community that definitely gets to have more representation and more of a more spaces to connect in Staten Island. So kudos. And that brings me to like one of my last questions. Uh, what is what are some lessons that you've learned through your process and through your art, and that you would give advice to an up and coming artist, and advice you would give to an up and coming artist? Yeah.
That That's hard. I think I would actually say like ask for help. Like definitely
Mhm.
ask for help. Don't take everything on your own, because I think that is my biggest problem. I am a control freak in many ways, and I'm under the mindset that like if I'm not going to do it, I don't know if it's going to get done right. So if you ask somebody, like if you tell people this is what I need, especially like gearing up to the show, like this is like even just saying like I need like space, I need to take a break, I need to work more in the studio, and just being like transparent about your needs going into things, I think would help so much. Because yeah, again, I make myself crazy, especially like the month before no, forget month, like the 2 weeks before a show,
Mhm.
I'm like insane. So I think just like having as much help and people's like in your corner to like help you is good.
Yeah, no, that's crucial. That's some pretty sound advice. So we want to thank you again for meeting with us, Zoe. It is very much appreciated. You have beautiful work, and we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. But before you go, where can we find you, and what are some important dates that we got to know? What do you want to link us to?
You could follow me on my art Instagram at Zoe_Tirado, Tirado. And then I have an email, zoetirado.com. Look out for March. I have a show at Newhouse called Ghoul Friends. The date is still up in the air, but March. And I think for now, that's really my main focus. Yeah, that show.
All
Yeah.
right, awesome. Thank you so
Thanks
much,
for having
Zoe. We'll see you soon, and it's our pleasure.